This right here is the town square of Whiterun in the popular video game Skyrim. It might look like a normal, busy, thriving business square, but is it actually? Have you ever taken a look at Carlotta's fruits and vegetables and wondered, where do these come from? Where does Anoriev get his meat from, and does anyone actually buy from these people? Do they earn money? Pay taxes? Well, I want to try and dig into the mysterious fantasy world of Skyrim and see just how far I can actually go down the sprawling web of economic infrastructure to answer the question. Does Skyrim's economy actually make any sense, or do they simply create the illusion that it does? Which means we'll be stalking NPCs, scoping out businesses, and reveal the secret that I believe to be holding Skyrim's economy together with duct tape. Also, real quick, before we begin, the last video somehow ended up on the hype leaderboard. I believe we cracked into the top 30 most hyped videos for the week. It's the first time we've ever been there, and I'd like to see if we can actually break the record with this one. So if you happen to be on your phone, feel free to use one or even all three of your weekly hypes on this video. Anyway, I figured the best place to begin would be the market square of Whiterun, since this is the place of one of the most interesting market stalls in the game to me. It's specifically this one right here. It's operated by Anoriev, a wood elven huntsman. I've seen this dude and his stall about 1,000,000 times now, but never have I ever actually bought anything from him. But someone has to buy something from him, right? I mean, he has a shop here for a reason. The citizens of Whiterun need a source of food, so who does he sell to? How does he acquire his game? Not just with women, but his meat too. This particular question spans along all the shops of Whiterun. Right next to him, we have Thalia Greymane. She sells her jewelry at this store, and it's quite eloquent work, if I do say so myself. Expertly crafted, even. Kinda suspiciously so. Now, most of you Skyrim nerds out there know why this is, but if you don't worry, we'll get to that in just a little bit. The last stall of the market is run by Carlotta. She sells fruits and vegetables every single day. Fresh fruits and vegetables, mind you, which means she must be getting them from somewhere. This got me thinking, how far does this web of economic logistics actually sprawl out in Skyrim? Can we follow a single process from start to finish? And can we do that for everything? If we circle back to our friend Anoriev here, he'll actually be so kind to inform us that he does indeed hunt all of these animals himself.
Oh yes, hunting is my great passion.
While Carlotta here will inform us that she sources her fruits and vegetables from the local farms.
Ripe fruit and fresh vegetables for sale. Straight from the fields and orchards of Whiterun to your table.
Or at least some of them, because I also happened to overhear a conversation between her and Nassim.
These fruits and vegetables are disappointing, Carlotta.
I get them fresh from the farms daily.
Fresh from the wilds.
If you were getting them from my farm, they'd be twice as fresh.
Turns out she doesn't actually want to do business with him specifically. I wonder why.
Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Oh, what am I saying? Of course you don't.
Thalia also tells us that she doesn't craft all of this jewelry herself. You can even overhear a conversation where an NPC will come to her asking her for a custom piece, which she then says she'll get her husband to craft for her. Given her husband's reputation as one of the best blacksmiths in all of Skyrim, the quality of these things start to make a whole lot more sense. Now, this is all well and fine. It shows that these people source their wares from various places. It helps with world building and at the very least creating the illusion that these are thriving real businesses. But it does beg a few questions. I mean, I've never personally bought any meat from Anoriev. I've never bought fruit from Carlotta either. And I've certainly never bought jewelry from Thalia. Do they actually sell things? Do they have actual customers? Well, to answer that question, I only really saw one possible solution, which is squat out in front of his stall and stalk him for 24 hours straight, counting every single person that shows up in his little shop. So, to start us off, Anoriev shows up for work at 10 a.m., about an hour later than everyone else. I do have a theory as to why this is, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. He then leaves his stall to go to his brother's inn at 7 p.m. That is a solid 9-hour workday. This guy is on a grind. However, in those 9 hours, a total of 16 customers showed up. Now, I can't possibly know if every single person buys from him. And quite a lot of these people also happen to be repeat customers coming to check out his shop, as there were only actually really 4 different unique NPCs that visited his stall. And 7 out of those 16 visits came from Brenuin, who happens to be the local poor street beggar who I imagine most certainly don't have the coin to buy from him 7 times a day. However, to me, that's not really the important part. It's Skyrim. We're all familiar with its jank and limitations in certain aspects. I am much more interested in the idea, the theory of a working business. And I mean, people do actually show up. There's a good solid number of customers showing up to look and most likely buy meat from his stall. So, well, ta-da, mystery solved, right? It's all well and good? Not quite. See, I'm not really fully satisfied yet. Because sure, he has all of this meat to sell at his stall every day. 7 days a week. But where the hell does it come from? He's very keen to tell you that he backs all of this game himself, but does he actually? And this is where the 1 hour difference comes into play. If you're curious, no. He doesn't actually go out and hunt. I am also like 99% sure that he doesn't have some random encounter for you to meet out in the wilds where you do see him hunting. He is, by all means, confined to Whiterun for all of eternity. But I like to imagine the reason he's 1 hour late is to solidify this illusion that he is indeed spending time hunting. It's either a very deliberate move from Bethesda to simulate the idea of him being out doing things more than the other stall merchants, or it's the less interesting option, a bug or some random glitch in the matrix, oversight, what have you. And while it's all well and fun to give Bethesda a hard time, deservedly so in certain cases, I do think they've always done an excellent job in terms of subtle world building. Like this conversation between Nassim and Carlotta, establishing not just that she does indeed outsource her crops, but that she also specifically chooses not to do business with him. And how Fralia will have customers come up and ask her for custom pieces. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to imagine that the reason Anoriev does show up later than everyone else is to help build this idea that he is outsourcing his own game, like he tells you. I am actually really impressed at how they managed to showcase the logistics side of these businesses without it being fully realized within the game world itself. But what happens when we expand this theory out to the rest of Whiterun? What about the Smiths? What about Bellefor's general goods? Arcadia's Cauldron? Farengar's soul gem and magical books? Arcadia's potion shop is full of ingredients and potions on display, like this one. I imagine it's a mix of potions she's brewed herself and reselling potions that adventurers like me and you sell to her. But while I can see her going outside Whiterun to maybe pick some flowers or herbs, I somehow can't imagine she sparred with giants for giant's toes or battled a Dremora for a heart. On top of that, while someone like Anoriev walks around, shows up late to give the illusion that he does actually do other things, Arcadia has an issue that she sorta shares with most other merchants in not just Whiterun, but all of Skyrim. She never fucking leaves. She is by all means stuck inside her shop for all of eternity. I've never seen her, Bellefor, or any of the Smiths in Whiterun go to the inn at night. They are stuck here. And while I know Anoriev doesn't actually go out to hunt, he's at least absent sometimes, like my dad, to simulate that he does indeed do other stuff than just attend his shop, which means we'll have to figure out how the hell she, Bellefor, and everyone else get their inventory. And while I definitely think that the occasional adventurer stopping by would help stock up their inventory, I can't possibly imagine that that's all there is to it. On top of that, how do these shops earn their precious coins? Do people actually show up to shop inside these buildings too, just like they did at the market stalls? I feel like I vaguely remember seeing people around Bellefor or even Arcadia's shops sometimes, but do they actually go inside? Well, you know the drill. We settle down, we squat, and we stalk. And you see, this right here is where Skyrim's economy started falling apart for me. Because after spending 2 entire in-game days stalking out not just Bellefor's shop, but Arcadia's too, not a single customer entered. The only person who actually showed up was Sigurd, who came to sweep the floors of this store before closing hours. And then I thought to myself, maybe, since Skyrim is an old game, if I'm inside the shop, maybe people on the outside don't actually enter. Schrödinger's shop kind of conundrum. So I went outside, placed myself so I had both shop entrances in my line of sight, and spent yet another 24 in-game hours staking it out. And You see what's happening here? The illusion is starting to show a crack. This is the first time I've had to use a game mechanic as an excuse for why the world isn't functioning the way I'd imagine it to. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but in either case, we've encountered our first breaking point of the Skyrim immersion iceberg here. However, if we look past the lack of customers, Arcadia and several other merchants actually does something pretty smart. She sells her skills and knowledge. She offers training in alchemy to anyone willing to learn from her trade. She can then turn the combined profits into importing rare ingredients and potions from outside of Whiterun. Somehow. Now, that's pretty cool, but does the same thing apply to someone like Bellifor, Yorlin Greymane, the War Maidens? Bellifor is the local everything salesman. He is a general store. And in his own words, he'd sell his sister if he had to.
Everything. If I had a sister, I'd sell her in a second.
But Bellifor is also unique in the sense that he actually has an employee. Sigurd here works for Bellifor and does something. From what I can tell, he mostly just chops wood outside, occasionally sweeps the floor, but there has to be more to it than that, right? And I do actually have a theory on that, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But first, back to Bellifor and his shop. I think another way for Arcadia and the Smiths of Whiterun to get some of their stock would be, well, through Bellifor. He clearly has an influx of various goods turning up, be it ingredients, spellbooks, or ores. He doesn't specialize in selling just one thing, he sells everything, including relatives. It would make sense for the various local shops to go to him for certain wares. But just like how I don't think adventurers are quite enough to supply every shop in town, I don't think that Bellifor really has the power or wealth to supply the entire city with goods. And it still leaves me with one burning question. How would he and the rest of the shopkeepers of Whiterun acquire their goddamn wares? And from whom? This in part brings me back to Sigurd. At this point, I became pretty convinced that Sigurd had to be secretly handling Bellifor's trade logistics for him, while occasionally sweeping the floor as well. Maybe he has some connections. I mean, he does mention that he's busy. A lot.
Don't mean to be rude, but I'm too busy to talk right now.
Maybe he's the one that goes around town, makes deals to supply a certain amount of ore to Adrian at the War Maidens, and supplies Arcadia with niche ingredients. And maybe, just maybe, hear me out here, he isn't actually chopping the wood for Bellifor, but really to sell it to Elrindir in the Drunken Huntsman, so that he can craft bows and arrows out of it. For all of this to really work, we have to make some assumptions, build the economic web step by step, and be willing to overlook certain gamey aspects of Skyrim. But like I've said a few times now, I am personally much more interested in the magic of it all. The illusion that this is indeed a real city with a working functional economy than it really actually being one. However, there is still a couple of businesses in Whiterun I'd like to take a closer look at. The first one being the two blacksmiths, the War Maidens and Yorlin Greymane. Just like earlier, not a single customer actually seems to show up to any of these shops, besides the player. However, as you enter Whiterun for the first time, you actually see Adrian talk to Idolith Battleborn, where he asks her to fulfill a work order for the Imperial Legion. She then says an order like that might just be a little bit too big just for her, and that he should just swallow his pride and ask Yorlin Greymane for help, which he promptly refuses. This is actually quite an important clue for us to figure out how these blacksmiths of Whiterun operate and make their coin. A shop like War Maidens doesn't just earn their septims from adventurers like you, me, and the various other people of Whiterun who are dressed like they treat War Maidens like a candy shop. It is now also established that they do work orders for bigger projects like the ongoing civil war of Skyrim, supplying the local guards with weapons and armor. This is hinted at through other ways too, like the quest to bring the Jarl a specialized weapon that she's crafted for him specifically, or that she mentions how she advises her dad, the advisor to the Jarl. It might not come as a big surprise, but it's still really cool that they visualize this connection through dialogue in the actual world. But this only covers Adrian and her husband inside. What about someone like Yorland? Well, he's certainly supplying the companions with weapons, armor, and the like. And as we established earlier, he also sells jewelry and crafts through his wife at the market stall. And maybe having the companions as a business partner is enough. I tried looking around for more more clues, but I'm unsure if he has any side hustles going on in the background. I really think he's just in it for the love of the game at this point, which is arguably even more respectable. I mean, he's garnered the reputation of the best blacksmith of the entirety of Skyrim for a reason. But one question was still burning through my mind. How do all of these local businesses that we've looked at actually acquire their stock, wares, and ore? If we go back and take Carlotta's fruit and vegetable stand as an example, she claims her produce originates from farms outside of Whiterun, which if we go out and have a look here, does seem quite likely. They grow various produce, they even have animals and stuff, which means she either goes out here, buys the stuff directly from them, or have them bring it to her inside the city. And although this particular transaction never actually happens in-game, it still maintains and holds on to the illusion through world building and storytelling. She then sells said produce to local citizens and maybe supplies the two inns of Whiterun with some of their produce as well. All in all, a healthy working business model. On top of that, we also have the illusion of it being a thriving, working business through the constant daily influx of citizens visibly showing up at her stall to buy stuff. So while we might not be able to visibly follow a single tomato from the farm into the hands of Carlotta and then into the pot of some stew somewhere in the Whiterun Inn, all the clues for that transaction are actually present, which I think is super freaking cool and impressive. I mean, it's all the way down to Sadia cooking food at the inn, presumably using a mix of meat and vegetables bought from the stalls right outside. And this actually applies to Arcadia too, despite the lack of customers. Bethesda does try to build up the illusion for her stocked up shop to make sense. She can source ingredients through Bellifor, but there's also one cool little side quest you can get from Farengar, where he's somehow gotten his hands on frost salts that he wants delivered to her, giving us a direct clue pointing towards her importing her ingredients through other means than just collecting them herself. I really like this. Now, I do also have another little ace up my sleeve that I think helps explain how all the main cities and their business owners actually acquire a lot of their stock, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. Bellifor and his helper in the shadows, Sigurd, could also be behind some of the supply of ore that has to enter the stock of our local blacksmiths. He could honestly very well be one of the focal points of Whiterun's entire economic system. Without him, the whole city might actually just fall apart. But I'm still a bit confused here. Sure, these blacksmiths might acquire parts of their ore from Bellifor, but where does the ore even come from? How does Bellifor get his grubby little hands on it? If we actually take a closer look at the Whiterun hold, there's not really any mines operating in the area. The only two mines that I could think of, Halted Stream Camp and Embershard Mines, are overrun and infested by bandits. And I somehow doubt that the local government and business owners of Whiterun would make official trade deals with people like that. But if you actually go investigate these mines, they're clearly actually mining here, producing ingots and ore to sell. So who's buying it? And this is where I genuinely think Bethesda did a stroke of genius in terms of world building. Because think about it, who has the reputation to be sleazy enough and okay with dealing with bandits, but also have the reputation as established businessmen? Or rather, business cats. The traveling merchant caravan of the Khajiits fit that description perfectly. They show up randomly outside every major city, always camping out here selling their bulk of different wares, ores, and anything they can get their hands on. They're essentially able to launder any questionably obtained goods and sell them to travelers and the major cities. And although they might not have the greatest reputation in Skyrim and aren't really allowed inside of the cities, I imagine that they're a lot safer to deal with than a group of bandits. They take the risk and also a little hit to their reputation, but in return, they also take all of the profit. They are, so to speak, a necessary evil for the local towns. If you manage to restore the Thieves Guild to their former glory, you can even make special deals with the Khajiits, so they act as a fence for your stolen goods, just further cementing that they have no qualms taking questionably obtained goods, make risky deals, while taking a fat profit when acting as the middleman between the riffraff of Skyrim and the legitimate business owners of the main cities. And Yeah, sure. From my knowledge, we never actually see them on the road. We don't see any caravans actually moving. We just see them randomly outside the cities. But it really hammers home my point of illusion and the world building that Bethesda is so well known for. The bandits are able to occupy the mines of Whiterun Hold, while the Civil War and Dragonfred is too resource and time consuming for the Jarl to send men out and retake them and make them operate normally. Instead, the bandits take advantage, mine the ore, sell it to the Khajiit, who then acts as a middleman and sells it to the Blacksmiths of Whiterun. And sure, maybe Whiterun also does business with some of the other holds and their mines, but this, as far as I'm aware, is never truly hinted at in-game. And again, no actual caravans or merchants really traveled the roads of Skyrim to sell the illusion of it happening, except for the Khajiits. Now, where it all starts falling apart and stops making any sense, at least for me, is when we zoom out yet another step. When we start to ask some of the bigger societal questions about not just Whiterun, but all of Skyrim as a whole. How is a city like Whiterun able to pay for the guards to patrol the area, making sure that nobody dares to touch a wandering chicken lest they get clapped by the hand of the law? How does the Temple of Kinnereth operate inside the city? Do the citizens of Skyrim pay some sort of income tax? Let's start with one thing at a time. The Temple of Kinnereth. In here we can see injured citizens being healed by the priests. But my question is this government funded? Does the temple rely on donations? Do the citizens pay for their own medical needs? Did they make the Argonians pay for the church? When walking around the place, you can find a bit of coin around and even a strong box hidden away. However, it's all empty, so I doubt it's funded through donations. So, is it tax? Well, the only real hint towards taxes even being in the game at all that I could find is the guard outside of Riften. He tries to shake you down for your hard-earned money through a visitor's tax. But as you enter and talk to Brynjolf, you quickly learn that this is all just a hoax. And whether you fell for it or not, he proceeds to call you poor.
Running a little light in the pockets, lad?
You're also not really taxed on your property in the game. You can own houses, even build your own on your own land. This could be because of the Thane status needed for you to realistically buy the property in every hold. Maybe a Thane is exempt from taxation. How do I become a Thane in real life in that case? Also, random question, does anyone know how to do their taxes as a YouTuber? I need help. Please. Maybe Lydia truly is sworn to carry your burdens and pays it for you. But in any case, you see what I mean here? At this point, we kind of arrive at the bigger questions, and this is where the illusion sort of goes up into smoke. When we look at this bridge right here, well, who built it? Who paid for it? Thanks to my buddy Aiden, I know whether or not it's up to code, but I'll never know who really built or funded the damn thing. Same thing goes for the roads, the houses, the guards. So while the system isn't perfect by any means, the web so far is held together by duct tape, world building clues, and our desire to go through some mental gymnastics to believe that this is really a working, functional world. However, I've saved my favorite place for last, the Bannered Mare. This is what I wish every business in Skyrim would look like. Hulda is the innkeeper selling meals and drinks, offers advice, banter, and local rumors, and sells a room for adventurers to sleep in. Sadia is her employee. She cooks, cleans, and serves the guests. Her food is visibly cooked and prepared here using the ingredients she most likely buys from the stalls right outside, from Carlotta and Anoriath, which Sadia then cooks and is able to sell. She acquires her alcohol through the local meadery outside the gates called Honningbrew Meadery. Inside the inn, Mikael acts as a bard. He performs and is most likely either paid through the inn itself or living off of tips, maybe even a combination of the two. Sadia is also provided with her own room, which could help explain how Hulda is able to afford her being around all the time, as maybe board and lodging is part of her pay. But on top of all that, there are actual people. Customers here. This place is packed every single night. People hanging out, talking, and presumably buying drinks and food. This right here is the Skyrim dream, and I really wish more of the local shops and businesses were as lively as the Bannered Mare is. Skyrim's economy doesn't really function. The supply chain breaks apart when we look under the hood. The stores barely get customers, and half of the infrastructure is barely held together with duct tape and our own delusional need for it to all make sense. But somehow, some way, it still feels believable. Skyrim is easily one of the most immersive games of all time because Bethesda understood something really important. You don't need to simulate every part of a world perfectly. You just need enough little details for the player's brain to connect the dots on their own. A big thank you to my lovely channel supporters for helping me make all of this possible. It genuinely means the world to me. I'm Koth. It was a pleasure, and thank you for watching.